Good evening, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and sorry I'm recording this and uploading this a bit late in the day. I may or may not have had someone over to my place, and yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to go any further into that. Man. I'm going to take that so many different ways. I 100% expect that. Today I want to talk about the largest potential, I'm going to call it a landslide, but the largest, the range essentially for the 2020 election. What the largest vote totals for each party are going to be. Actually, yeah, I'm going to call them, I can hear arguments for New Mexico. I don't agree with most of them, but I can at least understand an argument or two. And I think everything else most people would consider at least a toss-up. Okay. And I'm going to use my personal map as kind of a starting out point. Because I think that's the reasonable thing to do. There we go. And actually, Maine 2nd District. There we go. I may have Maine 2nd District as safe. I just don't remember right now. So, this is what I think will happen based off of, just assuming polls regress back towards the mean, which means Donald Trump improves approval rating and starts polling a little bit better in matchups versus Democrats and, of course, versus a generic Democrat. And assuming the economy stays relatively good. Ignore the down week the index funds had. Certain reports didn't look good, and a few major stocks dragged the prices down a little bit more than they should have been. So let's start with Donald Trump's largest possible victory. And for that, I'm just going to turn every state into, we're going to start with every state that he'd win, and I'm just going to turn it into the darkest shade to make it easier to see. And I'm going to do the same for Democratic states. Essentially, again, make it just easier to see. And there we go. So, the largest possible landslide I can see for Donald Trump, and calling it a landslide may be a bit generous. I can see arguments for him winning Virginia. I kind of understand that. And I can also see pathways to win Colorado. The rest of the states, I really just don't see a realistic shot of him carrying anything outside of this. And that's a large margin. 350 to 188. That's a wide margin. Now, let's flip things to the Democrat, and let's explain, and I'll kind of explain this map first before I flip things to the Democrat. The reason I see this being Trump's largest is he's not exactly popular in the Southwest, and he's not popular in the Beltway, the D.C. area, right? He's popular in the Rust Belt. He's popular up in this area, sort of, Maine, New Hampshire, but not really New Hampshire. but New Hampshire is a very swingy state, so I can see arguments for that. But Virginia and Colorado, he's not too far behind where you might reasonably expect him to be for a president with mid-40s, a Republican president with mid-40s approval rating, at least going by the likely voter, likely and registered voter mark. So I can hear arguments, but if you don't think he can win those two states, I 100% understand, and I wouldn't be too surprised if this was the widest he could actually pull. But this is the absolute widest I think he could pull. I don't think he's winning a West Coast state. He's not winning New Mexico, and I don't see him winning other New England states or Mid-Atlantic states. Delaware is possible, I suppose, but I just don't honestly see it unless he's winning by, 7 or more. And even then, it's a bit of a stretch. So let's reset. And let's go over the Democrats. Absolute widest possible. And I'll start with Pennsylvania and Florida. They would absolutely have to win those two states in order to even win the election. The next state that would probably be on their slate is actually that's the Nebraska second congressional district in Nebraska. Next on the slate, I would guess, is North Carolina, though Arizona would probably go at the same time these days. After that, let's see, Georgia and probably Ohio and Iowa at the same time. And I think this is the absolute widest possible, unless they get a Beto O'Rourke. I forgot to take off Maine second. So this is the absolute widest possible margin, unless they had a Texan on the ticket, and then maybe you could argue that, but I think that's a bit much of a stretch, though it would put a Democrat over 500, or not 500, 400 electoral votes. And that's probably what the map would look like in the best case scenario for Democrats. This would be a bit more reasonable upper limit for if they're winning by, 6%-ish, 6 or 7. It just kind of depends, maybe a little bit less, or maybe a little bit more than that, because Georgia is that way. And I'll go ahead and have a little bit of fun and say, what happens if Trump wins the popular vote by 10%? What would I expect to happen? What would I expect the map to look like? Well, he would probably win at least those. If he's winning the popular vote by about 10%, I could see New Mexico. I could see Delaware. I could even see Rhode Island. Or Connecticut. I'm not sure which, but I could see one of those. But we'll just leave it here as a reasonable baseline for if he's winning by 10%, which isn't going to happen, by the way. It isn't going to happen. And I guess I'll include one more just for the laughs. If a Democrat wins by about 10%, oops. There we go. Obviously winning that vote. Obviously there and there. Probably winning Georgia. And Texas. I would, at 10%, I think Texas would possibly tilt. Montana, North and South Dakota, those wouldn't be too far off. But it's still fairly solid Republican at that point. I don't see arguments for South Carolina just yet, but it would be getting there. Missouri and Indiana would start getting competitive. Yeah, Alaska as well. But that's about the most I could see at 10%. I guess at 15, I'll flip Alaska. And just to be fair, I'll show what I would expect Donald Trump at 15% to be. Which, again, neither of those is going to happen, but I'll show it just for argument's sake. I'll include Connecticut, Rhode Island, Delaware. I think that would absolutely be the mark. Oregon I could hear arguments for, but I just don't think it would happen. That said, there would be a lot of states in between 15 and 20 that would flip. So I could hear arguments for some of those. Anyway, let's take this back to the 2016 results. And there we go. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy. Bye.